start the introductions. I'm Rosalind Murphy. I'm a media consultant and producer, and my company is Murphy Media. And one of the things in the last 2 months, I relaunched my blog, Murphy Media Blog. And so I have been doing what I call the stay home edition. And it's really providing like sharing offerings that companies have provided for us to stay home safe, to keep us engaged, and online events. So I've been working on that and also launching Murphy Muse Live.
Right.
So one of the things in being with New York Women in Film and being a producer, I come across some really great talent and people who inspired me. So that's why I wanted to start like kind of doing these live events. So I want to introduce our guest, Dui Jarrod, and Dui is multi-hyphenate, multi-talented, and he is a screenwriter, director, and I love on your website you say creative engineer. I like that.
That's it.
I like that.
That's it.
And so you and I met in 2013, right? And we met at a screening in New York, but I think at that time you were working on Unholy War.
Yes.
Yes. So I've known you for a while, and we reconnected in 2019 at Sundance. So it was really great. And so, you know, again, you're multi-talented. Your films that people know you by, Brooklyn.Blue.Sky. Yes, and then you also, I want to get it right. So Brooklyn.Blue.Sky was acquired, was a web series by BET, but you also won the Xfinity web series at the American Black Film Festival.
Yay!
Yes, so that's really exciting. So we're going to celebrate that. And then also, you are a creator and showrunner of King Ester, where you have a partnership with Issa Rae.
Yes.
So we want to hear about all those things. And so we do have people are joining in. But I just want to say to you, you know, one of the things we met in 2013, met in 2019. One of the things I can say about you, whether I see you or see you online, you're always so passionate and your energy is always the same. And I love that because I saw you in 2019 and we connected and we were like, wait a minute, let's exchange numbers. Oh, I already have your number, right?
I already had it.
We connected, but we didn't realize it had been like 6 years before that we had connected. But your energy is always the same, always passionate, always connecting with people, always just kind of willing to give. So that's why you were like, you know, on the top of my list for talking to. So let's get right to it. You have so much going on. Would you love to? I would love to hear about Queen Ester first. You know, I think because one of the things with that, you're a creator and showrunner, and that's also where you have the partnership with Issa Rae. So if you can kind of just share that a little bit.
Yeah, so I did King Ester back in 2018 at the very beginning of it, and it was initially it had been derived from a play that I had written called The Inevitable Sadness of All Things Good, to which I just finished that feature film script, but that's another topic for another moment. And I had pulled out this character specifically because we all know that trans women are the most marginalized of the marginalized. And I wanted to use my power and agency in order to give that over to another story that I thought had a lot of significance. And New Orleans had an incredible amount of significance for me. I went through Hurricane Katrina down there and lost everything I had, which wasn't much. It was basically a computer and a futon.
But it was yours. That's yours, right?
Yes. It was mine, and it was gone. And so I wanted to do a story that elevated some of the stories that I feel like it kind of washed away in the history. And we went and put it on a film circuit tour, and it did extremely well. And then for long, we started talking to Denise and Benoni, Rich and Jabrielle over at Issa Rae's production company, and then they brought it on and acquired it, and that released last October. So it's been an incredible journey. Yep.
Awesome. Well, that's one thing I think too, when I look at the projects you have across the board, you're always telling that story that we generally don't see. And and so I just want to go back to, I'm not sure if I said this in your introduction, you're from Brooklyn. You grew up in Brooklyn, born in Brooklyn.
I wish. Do I look like I was born
No, but I thought I read that, but then I was like, okay, he lived in Brooklyn.
So it's interesting. Actually, you're right and you're not right. So I'm originally born and raised in Arkansas, but I became who I am in Brooklyn. So I really identify a little bit more with Brooklyn because that was the space where I really found out who I was. So I feel like I grew up in Brooklyn, but I actually was born and raised in Arkansas, a really, really small town down south.
Okay. Now, so when you ask that question, do you look like you're from Brooklyn? So I was born in Brooklyn, but grew up
Mm,
in Virginia. So I love to claim Brooklyn, and
come
Brooklyn
on.
folks would say, "Hey, you were born here." But I love to claim it because as you talk about, like, I think it's a sense of coming to New York and how you grow as a person, but also your community. So I saw that, and then I saw it like I remember you living in Brooklyn, but also you have your project Brooklyn.Blue.Sky. So
Yeah.
if you can talk a little bit about that, and so how did the name, was that a like O2 Brooklyn, or yeah? So if you can just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Brooklyn.Blue.Sky was completely different from King Esther and the most recent project that I had, which was Sauce. I had quit the film game.
Mm,
Some people really don't know that, but I did a film called um, Lesson Before Love that was it was supposed to be like a Black version of Closer, really small, really intimate, and it got into this really big film festival in Brooklyn and
yes.
New Voices in Black Cinema. Rest in peace to Aaron Ingram, who started it over there.
Okay.
And I thought, like, this is going to be it for me. Like, I'm going to get and do what everybody else is getting to do. And didn't shit happen. And it broke my shit. It broke my whole spirit. And so when I officially moved to New York, like a few months later, I wanted nothing to do with film. I just wanted to write, and so that was where my community came from early on. And most of the people that I'm super cool with were all
Mhm.
playwrights because I started to be around playwrights and I just wanted to get everything on stage. And that's where we originally met when I had a play called Unholy War, starring Michael Rashan and Alex Mulzak, who are two really, really big actors right now. And so yeah, as a vision came over me, honestly, it was based on some stuff that I had seen on Issa Rae's channel, believe it or not, with First
Okay.
and Black and Sexy TV. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to get back into the feature film game because that was just too heartbreaking. So why don't I just approach the industry from doing smaller episodic content and use that as a template to go forward and start to work in the film industry as an actual showrunner on a
Mhm.
show that's 30 minutes or longer. And so
Okay.
that's why I decided to do Brooklyn.Blue.Sky. And the Brooklyn, I wanted to really name the series after the three characters. So Blue is the lead male, Skylar is the lead female, and I feel like Brooklyn is the other character. So that's why I did
Okay. I love that.
Brooklyn.Blue.Sky. Yeah.
I love that. But and you said something really important, that I think a lot of artists go through, whether you're a filmmaker, you're a painter, you're a musician, that point where you get to, okay, I'm going to take a break. I think, we do go through that point where it's like, okay, I'm done. I've tried it. I've taken a break. So you went through that. What was like inspiring? Like, was it calling you? It was like, okay, I just got to get back in the game. Do you feel like you needed a rest and to come back with new energy? What was that like transforming to kind of reset and come back?
Listen, I'm going to be honest here. I had no desire, no plan. I was not about to do another motherfucking thing in film. Like it wasn't no. So it wasn't a calling, but what I've learned
Okay.
is in my experience of creating and living as a actualized person, you have to go with whatever your internal dialogue is telling you to do. Right. And so
Right,
you have
right, right.
high vibes and you have low vibes. And when I was younger, I went off the high vibes. Everything that I was inspired, I'm like, let me do, and it drives you crazy. Well, now I just started to ease into my lower vibes. And there was something that
Mm,
kind of kept beating within me that kept saying, make some more content, make some more content, make some more content. And so I felt
okay.
like the most important thing I could do was episodics because that's what I really, really love. What independent film used to be when we were
Mhm.
growing up is now what's on television, those small films with a lot of heart, maybe an unknown cast. And so it just kind of was beating in me to do it. And so that's why I just decided to go ahead and just do it.
That's great. And so, and when I was introducing you, I talked about all the different things that you work in that you're talented at. Would you say that, and I know it's always hard when people ask you to pick, but would you say writing is your first passion? And, as a content creator, I think that first step is that I'm also a writer. In writing, you can kind of do that alone and get it done. Would you say that's your first passion, or did you say, yes, I know I want to tell my stories and I want to direct, so I'm going to write so that I can direct?
Yeah, so initially when I first started in the industry, that's all I could do. That's all you have access to. When you're in Arkansas or you're in Louisiana, the industry's not there. So I started off writing, and with a
Okay.
lot of the writing, it does make you feel fulfilled. It makes you feel good to be able to get it out. But then
Right.
there's also was this another hole in my heart that was like, well, I wrote it, but where is it? Why is it being, it needs to be fully put together. And so then I started to direct. And when I started directing, I was like, okay, that's my judge, right?
Oh, right.
And then
Yes.
directing broke my heart. So then I had to
Oh,
really like pull it all back and say, who am I actually? And what I am is a creator. And I derive all sort of pleasure from just the simple acts of creating, whether that's a meal or creating the bedroom or putting, you know, choosing what sock combination I'm gonna be having this coming up week, you know? And
mm-hmm.
so in that, I can always feel fulfilled because then I could always go create a meal, or I could always, or I could go paint this, or I could go create that. And
Right.
so now I'm a creator, and the things that I'm most guided by that I'm making a living off of is actually creating television. But I'm a creator all around, so I'm
Yeah.
always able to do it, and I don't give it space to break my heart anymore.
Okay, I hear you, and you know, in creating and specifically, I think film music across the board, you know, it gets to a point where if even when you're a writer, you're getting to the point where you need to collaborate. So, who were like your first? Are you your first collaborations, or someone that like really inspired you? You're like, okay, this is my partner. We really work really well together. What type of collaborations have you had as you gone through the process of doing these projects?
So I've gone through a myriad of collaborations to now understand what collaboration really means. Because you're supposed to collaborate in the heart with
Yes,
intention, and
first.
that does not mean you have to work together for the rest of your fucking lives. And so I initially started off with a partner named Tyler Dixon, who would shoot everything that I was doing, but he's a director as well. And we've since reconnected back out here in Los Angeles. But so that was my first initial. I've never actually had a writing partner, but I was part of a writing lab for a long time. So that's how I met Jean Philippe and Stephanie Bogue and Charles Drew, you know, God rest his soul, Christopher Means. That's when I started to meet other writers who really challenged the work. Like it wasn't personal. And it's hard to hear somebody read your script and be like, that don't work, that don't work, that
Yes.
don't work. But it teaches you it, and it elevates your level of nuance. So then when you come back into that writer's room with those pages, you're going to make sure they don't drag you like they did last week. And so it was that group of young creators. Most of them were creators of color too. Let's keep it clear.
Good.
Most of those creators of color is who really gave me the foundation of excellence that I kind of stand on, because I already had natural instincts. It's like I'm LeBron and I could dribble and I could shoot, but I didn't understand the game. You understand what I'm saying? Because I'm LeBron.
Okay.
I used to be one of those people who were like, no, I'm so humble, no money, you know, and fuck that. I am LeBron. I just needed the tools and the
I love
stage
that.
to stand on. And now I'm getting those opportunities, and I feel so fortunate because all those skills that I developed over time, now I'm out there and able to actually use them.
Yeah, the writing room is so important. As you talked about that dragging, that dragging definitely makes you better. You have to be, as you said, know, like have the confidence, know who you are, but also be open enough to hear that.
Yep.
So that's one of the things I've been working on in the last couple of years, and so inspired in the writing rooms that I've been in, and my friends who are writers, and I'm just kind of like, okay, this is making me better. So that's great to
Yeah.
hear about that collaboration.
Yeah. Criticism is tough, but criticism from well-meaning people who deserve to give you feedback. Because, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, let's just be honest. If people are not out there putting themselves out there, working hard and creating, I'm not really interested in their feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just on some, if you would have, this is what you would have done. And that doesn't mean anything, right? I can go criticize how somebody built a house, but until I know how to build my own house and how hard it is to lay that foundation, you can't really criticize somebody else that does. So it also took me time to figure out who to receive feedback from. And now that
Okay.
I'm receiving feedback from those appropriate people, now I'm getting better as opposed to just having been confused. Because in the past, somebody give you feedback and you're like, well, I understand what you're saying. That's because they didn't know what they were saying, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But to get that actual feedback from people who are valued, who's got dirt on their knees as well, That's really what happened in Brooklyn for me, that really brought me to where I am. But those are the unsung heroes of my productions. Most of the time people think the first production that they work on me, that's how you made it. And it's like,
Yes.
no, there were so many other steps that got me to the place where you could read my script and go, this is excellent. And those are the people like Farah Philippe and people like that who helped me get through that process.
And we talked about the collaboration of writer room. What about, so I know you've had web series at different festivals. How have you found that festival experience, as far as meeting new people you collaborate with, meeting that community? How do you feel about sharing your web series at the festivals, and what do you feel like you really get from that?
So it's been interesting. So when I had my feature film and I was going out on the different film festival circuits with like Lesson Before Love, it was nice because you would be given like a really big platform to stand on, because you're one of the few features, and most of the features are automatically in competition. And so it was exciting for me to be able to have those opportunities. But then when I started to do episodic content, it felt like more of a community. And so it felt really nice to be able to connect with James Bland, connect with Caleb Davis, who did Pillow Talk, Carlton Jordan, and so many of these other creators who are creating episodic content, because there is a much more of a collaborative spirit with us, as opposed to a competitive spirit that it felt like on a feature film. Because there's enough space for everybody in both, but there are only a few dollars in the feature film world, and there are only a few spaces. So it was a little tough to navigate, but for me, I stopped going to film festivals in order to like make it and win awards. I started going to film festivals to connect with other creators that I respect. And when I switched that up, when I switched my attitude up, I started having really great festival experiences, because I didn't give a fuck if I won. I didn't give a fuck if I lost. I didn't give a fuck if I screened at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to drink my champagne like I'm about to do in a couple seconds. Yes. And I'm going to enjoy this experience. And you usually screen episodic content with the rest of the people that's in your group. So you're all more of a collective. So in those regards, it was extremely special for me to roll through the film festival circuit this year. But I'm not going to be doing that no more. It costs too much money.
It does. So for me, as I said, we could reconnect at Sundance, and I love going to Sundance. I'm as a marketer and producer, so it's great for me to connect with talent folks like you, who are looking, for marketing, who are looking to collaborate. But I have friends who are directing and producing. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to Sundance until my project's there. So I understand that, right? And then when, as you say, when you go to a film festival, and then you're in the film festival, it's all around the competition, and it's really crazy. But I love meeting creatives. I love meeting the executives too. So that's it's a different, different energy when you're going as a marketer, or when you're going with your project. Because I've also been pitching my films and submitting them. So I'm looking forward to that experience when I have my film at a film festival.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about too, as I talked about, mostly on the East Coast, but I hear about like the energy of, New York and LA. So you shared how kind of, in Brooklyn, you felt like you kind of came into your own, you had your community. Can you kind of talk about like the difference that you felt, good experiences, or just kind of what you got from New York community and what you got from your LA community?
So it's interesting. The blessing, let me tell you the blessing first, and then I'll back it up just a little bit. The blessing is I came out to LA as a fully formed adult man with my own value system, my own understanding of self, and I could see the world differently than when I was younger. Right. And so what I didn't do is I didn't come out to LA to make LA the New York experience. I knew it was two different places. Right. And when people compare the two, it's kind of ridiculous, because it really is like comparing an apple to like an elephant. It's just two different animals. So what I can say about New York is New York creators are extremely rigorous. If they meet you and your work is excellent, New York people will fuck with you. Right? It doesn't matter if you went to USC. It doesn't matter if you went to one of the CUNY schools. If you are dope in New York, they're going to fuck with you because you're dope. And they're going to figure out a way to collaborate. That happened with me with Brick TV. Like, I didn't come with this extensive resume on paper of scholastic excellence. What I showed up with was work. And they said, we fuck with you. Let's work with you.
Good.
That is not the case in LA. LA works with you based on the relationships that you have already made and are currently making, right? So LA, they fuck with you in tiers, right? Right now, I'm in
tears.
I'm not in the bottom tier and I'm not in the top tier, but I'm in the mid-bottom tier.
Okay.
Where it's like, you know what? He's talented, he's dope. We just need something else to reinforce that, right? So like right now, I'm up for an Emmy. If I win that Emmy, which I will, praise God.
Yeah.
Praise God. If I win it, everybody's gonna come back around, right? Or let's say Issa hit me up and like, yo, I want you to do my next film. Everybody will come back around. But in New York, they're willing to let you stand on your own merits. In LA, you have to stand in association with someone else until you actually have your own merits. Because if you think about it, I know I'm talking a little bit, but if you think about it, a lot of the creators that we really rock with in LA, we rock with them based on the association that they have. Yeah. Right? So if a creator comes up and they got a series on HBO, we fucking with them off top. It's not necessarily the creator, but it's the platform, right? That's how they did that. Right. Or you'll see, like, let's say a new creator announces, I got a new deal with this web company. Ain't nobody gonna shout them out because it's not association. So that's really the difference in LA and New York. Okay. And you can navigate both if you know what the market is asking you for.
Got it. Okay, so that's wonderful. Thank you for answering that question about New York and LA, but we skipped over the Emmy. I need to hear more about the Emmy nomination. I want to know the project. So so we can celebrate you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I haven't been nominated yet. Okay.
But tell us about that process.
Thank you so much. It's a very interesting process. And for people that don't know it, I'm about to just give it to you right now. So people don't just show up and just like win an Emmy. That is not how that goes. When I was in New York, that's how I thought it was. I had seen Giants, Issa Rae, over on Issa Rae Presents. I had saw Giants, I think Vanessa and I think Terrence won an Emmy with the series Giants, and James Bland was nominated. So I was like, oh shit, like all you got to do is do really good work, put it out there, and you can be in consideration. Okay. And so after I did Brooklyn.Blue.Sky and BET picked it up, I was like trying to hit up BET like, yo, like they're letting Black content get celebrated at the daytime Emmys. Like, could y'all submit for us? They were dead silent. They didn't say shit. So I went that whole season and we didn't get submitted. But when their nominations came out, I was looking for my name.
Yes. So you're thinking you're thinking you made the ask and it was submitted.
I'm thinking like you make it and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you show up with it. And that's not how it goes. Okay. So what you have to do is when you finish your project, it has to fall within a certain number of parameters of being in that year. It has to be a certain length of content. There's certain parameters that goes along with it. Then you have to submit to the Emmy organization. Okay. So I don't have a whole lot of money. I'm drinking champagne this morning. Cheers to you, Roz. Cheers. But I don't have a whole lot, but I put my fucking money into that Emmy submission. So to submit any category is about $500. And so you submit into those categories, you meet that, and then they go through several rounds of voting. So they went through a first ribbon round where it's just like the initial nominations. And from that initial platform, they do something called a short list. So they'll take it down from like a couple of hundred submissions to like 18 projects that they feel these are the finalists before we do the official nominations. Okay. So fortunately, Issa Rae Presents King Ester.
Yes.
Was on that motherfucking short list.
I love that. Presents, yes. Issa Rae Presents.
Yes, and Janet Huber was on that short list. She was the original Unviv. And Rowan Amon, the lead actress, she was shortlisted as well. And so a few of the other nominations will be derived later. And so I'll know in the next 7 days whether I'm officially nominated for a daytime Emmy. And when I was younger, I was so fearful of asking for things because if I asked for it and then was disappointed, I would be heartbroken. But I'm not on that no more. So I have been openly saying to the universe and to the world, I want that Emmy nomination because I know what it will do for the possibilities of the story that I want to eventually tell. And I want to buy more champagne.
Cheers. I love that. I love that. So let me, we're like halfway in. So I do want to see, so yes, fingers crossed, people like are saying prayers. We're like, you know, wishing you good luck in that and want to hear back. So I do want to see if there are any questions since we're halfway there, because I could go on and on, but we have some folks joining. So let me see if we have any questions. So I don't see any questions. Let me see. I saw a lot going through. But, you know, one of the things guys, yes, absolutely. As you see, I'm going really in because even though I have glasses on, I still can't see. One of the things I wanted to talk about, because this was a tough week, just a lot of things happening this week. And I just kind of wanted to ask about, and a lot of losses, right? I wanted to ask, as an artist, what do you feel, or do you feel personally having a responsibility is also being an activist? Is that a personal thing? And what do you think, you know, overall I hear folks saying, well, I don't think that should be my responsibility. But of course, when it hits your community, when certain things that you're passionate about, you know, and what do you take that on? Because again, kind of looking at your stories, I know you talk about Brooklyn, New Orleans, you talk about trans women. There's so many topics that you have in your stories and your films about marginalized people. So how do you feel personally as a artist, and how you are, if you use that as an activist, or your storytelling as an activist?
You know, that's like a really deep question. Like, it was really deep, and there's layers to it, because I've been having a very specific experience this year, and I haven't really shared much about my experience. I've always supported all forms of sexuality expressions, gender expressions, and I understand the racial undertones that we have to deal with in the microaggressions. So I get all of those things. So I had a lot going on this year as far as King Ester was concerned, because clearly I'm not a transgender man, but I was the person who told and owned this story, right? And it was done in a way that was excellent. But what I did not try to do was to write someone else's experience solely from my viewpoint. I took as much information on as I possibly could. But what I didn't know when I was creating it, how much and how important it is for these communities to represent and tell their own stories. I didn't realize that. And I didn't think that there would be any kind of backlash to a young Black man telling his story, specifically because I don't see white boys receive the same level of criticism. So Ryan Murphy did Pose and we celebrated. Or, you know, Steven Spielberg did Color Purple, a Black story of a Black queer woman in the 1950s who was going through some real shit. We celebrated it. But when young Black men do it, there seems to be this energy that says, thank you for the story, but we don't necessarily want it for you. And what I kept hearing was, you're an activist, you're an activist, you're an activist. And that's not really the case. I'm an artist, and what I'm capturing is certain stories at a certain given time to tell the arc of humanity. However, I realize art does have a place in the activist space. What I would say, though, is the reason why I do not consider myself an activist is because there are people who every day get up out of bed changing legislation so that society can benefit. That's not what I'm doing, right? What I'm doing is standing up with story in order to push it out there so people can see another story in a very humanistic place. So it's a thing. I kind of got drugged in Chicago about it.
Okay.
Because a good dragging that you're able to give up will
but
bring
you're
about
leveraging
growth
your platform. You're leveraging your platform.
Quick,
yeah.
You know, but that's just what I'm saying. That's just how my view is of that specifically. I am a storyteller, and thus it can be used for activist purpose. But by nature, I'm not getting up every day simply trying to change legislation.
Yes.
And in truth be told, that I'm not every day waking up to tell stories about Esther specifically. There are other gender expressions. There's other things about Black masculinity. Those other stories that I want to tell. So that's just what it is.
I think thank you for that answer, because I think, yes, let's applaud those who are part of organizations, Change of Color, so many organizations, as you say, get up every day, and that's their goal, right? That's their goal, to rally us together. That's their goal, to develop campaigns and to, highlight and kind of rally the folks to call. So, but I do think, as you said, when we have certain stories, how do you use your platform? Whether that's your
Yes.
platform in your community, whether that's your platform on social media, how do we use our platform for the things that we care about that has to go beyond us, not just us. So I like that. Now, I did see a question from Letitia. She asked, how do you juggle so many projects? And I'm going to try to get closer so I can see some more. Guys, before Dewey answers that, if you have questions, can you put it in the question? Because they're going by really fast. So I definitely want to get your questions in here. But I think it would be great if I could, if you can put them in the question so I can find them. But yeah, so how do you juggle so many projects?
So it's interesting. I have a really small team. And when I say small, it's like 4 of us. And what I've had to learn how to do was to really like delegate and give other people trust that other people could do the work. I think when you first start off in this industry, especially for me, I had a lot of trust issues because I'm like, well, if it ain't gonna be done how I think it should be done, then I'm gonna just have to do it myself. And now I've really fallen off of that, and I've taken a more strategic approach. So it's like, on this, I need to take the lead as a producer. This, I need to take the lead as a director. This, I'm focusing on writing at this time. And there's a lot of difficulties, especially where I am, because I'm still in that place where I'm getting paid to do my art, but I'm not getting paid to the point where I can say no to a lot of things. Right. So I'll get a script that I'm really not that interested in, but I'll still go through the process and do the work of providing storyboards or doing what else I need to do to put myself in position to get that gig. But my hope is in winning this Emmy, y'all heard that, or in getting where I need to get, I could just, if a project hits my space that's not what I'm supposed to do, I could just say, no, thank you. I respect your work, but no, thank you. And then I can just do what I want to do, but I'm not there yet. So the juggling act, hopefully I'll have to do it a little bit less later, or I might have to do more, who knows, who will see. But it's really tough. You find people that can do the job and trust that they're going to get it done.
Okay. And we had a question from Digital Sheila. Hi, Sheila. She was asking, do you consider yourself a disciplined writer? And what is your writing process?
Sheila, thank you for the question. No, I am not a disciplined writer at all. It would be so beautiful for me to get up every day and just write, but that's just not my reality. Almost all of what you see from me is me. My trailers to not my website this time. It was done by Janae Charles, who is incredible. DM me if you need a dope-ass website. But like a lot of the advertisements that I'm doing, a lot of the flyers, I'm still cutting and doing a lot of that stuff, and that requires a lot of my time. So hopefully as we come out of Corona, which Corona has been great for me, I've been able to write a lot more, but I write out of inspiration. I don't write necessarily timed. So I'm like, wake up at 4 a.m. and just start writing, because sometimes I write and I don't have anything to say, and all I want to really do is eat Captain Crunch.
And we have a question. I'm trying to make sure I have the name right. Dirty 11 wants to know about your experience growing up in Arkansas and how did that shape your storytelling?
Well, thank you. Was it Dirty 11?
Yes.
That's cool. Thank you for the question. Arkansas shaped me beautifully. The thing that, because people will sometimes forget all about Arkansas. Some people think it's like over there by Montana. And I'm like, what? It is the dirty South. That's what Arkansas is. The thing that makes Arkansas so unique and special is the fact that it's driven based on family and relationships. And when you're dealing in that space, you meet so many interesting and amazing characters. And so what Arkansas has done, it is given me the foundation and the value system of family and friends, where I've been able to appreciate. One of my best friends is from Arkansas, Derwin. My sister, I've maintained an extremely close relationship, Yana. She's still in Arkansas. And so Arkansas created the foundation of who I am. I just flourished in another space. So Brooklyn is where I really came into myself, but I wouldn't be who I was without the foundation of Arkansas, who made me what I am.
Oh, great. And I saw this earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't get the name, but someone was asking, so what's next for you?
Making money.
Making money, getting the Emmy.
Getting this Emmy. making money. I'm still working out as if I was going to put a tuxedo on that night.
Okay.
But no, I just finished a feature film called The Inevitable Sadness of All Things Good. I decided during this quarantine, unless she catch me, she ain't caught me yet, but that's a bad bitch. I'm trying to write at least one new pilot per month. With a completely different perspective. So coming up shortly, I'm going to write my first comedy script, which is interesting because I feel like I'm a funny person in real life, but when I get to the paper, I just bleed emotion. And so it's going to be a real challenge for me to write something that is quote unquote funny, but fuck it, I can do it.
Okay.
I can do anything.
That's good. I saw another question. Did you go to college? And then it says Pine Bluff. I'm not sure.
Pine Bluff?
Yes. Is that part of Arkansas? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So the question was, did you go to college?
Yes, I went to college. I went to the wrong school. I should have went to a small liberal arts college, but I went to a really big school, LSU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, forever LSU. And so I should have really gone to a smaller place that really kind of coddled me because me and LSU struggled. We struggled. But your boy made it and, you know, whatever.
So someone asked, why don't you think you can write comedy? Why?
So a lot of people think, whoever asked the question, thank you. That's a really good question. It hasn't been my natural inclination. When I first started making things, I always made dramas because that's just really how I saw the world in a very dramatic way. And so people don't realize the difficulty in writing comedies. They see people that are comedians and they think that it's really, really easy, but it's actually really, really difficult. It's a lot easier to write a monologue that's dramatic, perform that monologue, and people get the intended perspective of what they want. But for comedians, it's different because what you're having to do is to break the exterior of someone's soul to get to the heart of them where they're able to laugh. And to be able to do that in a comedic way is extremely difficult. And so I respect all of the people who are in comedy. And I know people think that you can just write a line and it's funny, and it's not true. There's various forms. So The Cosby Show was a teleplay, but it was really a play that could be perceived as funny. But that's a different comedy from Blackish, which is a different comedy from Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is different than Kimmy Smith. I have to not only come up with my comedic timing, what I want to say, and why I think it should be said in a comedic way. So that's the big challenge for me in stepping into the comedy world, because I've never had to think about those things in terms of reading the script, writing the script. When it's drama, I just immediately know where I should lean with the comedy. I'm gonna have to flex a different muscle, but I got them, so I'm gonna flex them hoes.
And I wonder with comedy, I know comedians who write, but I'm also wondering for specific like film with comedy is at best in a writer's room. You know, like you do have to, you know, getting that feedback and working off of each other. I'm just kind of wondering if that works that way. The question, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It does help, but go ahead.
And so we have a question about, do you still block your calendar? It says, do you still block your calendar when you're, I guess, when you're writing or on your with your digital with all?
No, I turn the phone off, and if I'm texting somebody, I'll let them know like, hey, I'm gonna be writing for the next couple of hours, and usually I'm just asleep.
Okay. So we have a question about directing. So what is your directing process, and specifically, how do you work with actors?
Thank you for whoever asked that question. That's a really good question. My directing process is actually really interesting and different because I'm a very emotional person. If you ever met me, you would know like this nigga is filled with emotion. And as an adult, I've learned to not let it take me over. You know, like past draggings would have taken me out. Now I'm like, okay, I get it. I should have been dragged and I know how to move on. So I work with the actors. I don't tell the actors what to do. I pick actors who I know have the skills to bring their own thing, and then I just kind of direct that. But also, I just want to say this, and it's just some real shit. Directing is not just directing actors. Directing is coming up with a cinematic approach. It's working and making sure you have the right camera. It's understanding lighting. It's understanding color and composition. There's a lot of things that go into being a really great director. Music choices. And let me tell you, the most important thing is picking your team. Because if you pick a shitty team, you're going to have a shitty ass project. And so for me, directing is way more encompassed than just working with actors, although working with actors is the pinnacle of it because that's where you really need the performance to come from. But production design to hair, you got to have perspective. And I'm talking about cinematic perspective because what looks good on them streets ain't going to be popping on that film. I remember my, she's not my assistant anymore, Yolanda, but she came to my film set and she had got her French braids with all these beads. And I'm like, where you going? Who said you finna work on with all these damn beads? We ain't gonna be able to hear these beads over the people, right? And so she didn't know. So you have to have a cinematic perspective to being able to accomplish someone's script. And that's only can be learned in practice. And the thing that sucks about directing, you only get to direct when you're directing. Writing is different. I can sit down for the rest of the day and write, and I'm living that truth. But directing, that skill of reading people, getting things out of people. Because listen, I had a tough time on the set of King Ester. You want to ask me about it, you can, but a nigga went through it. You understand? Do you understand? So that Emmy, when that walks and that hits my hand, that bitch is going to be celebrated. You hear me?
I love it.
Because I've been through a lot of shit. And people see me on the thing and I smile and I always present a level of professionalism. But don't think that a brother's heart isn't broken with some of the nonsense that I've had to deal with, especially as a young Black man. Mm-hmm. We deal with a lot of shit on these film sets from people who don't think that we should be leading the set and they own your shit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think I had too much champagne.
Look, we want the truth here. We want the truth.
Just saying.
Yes. That's the process. You go through it. We do have I think this is a really good question, so I'm going to read it. Do you think web series on YouTube have the potential to be moved to other platforms like Hulu, Netflix, or HBO?
No. Let me tell you something. I'm going to keep it real because that's what we all do. I did it too. And that's how you end up in a therapist's chair crying about tomorrow, right? It's because your expectations aren't focused on today. And the reality is this. The reason why I was so heartbroken with my film, Lesson Before Love, is because my expectations for what Lesson Before Love was supposed to do weren't in line with what God wanted from Lesson Before Love, right? And so I'm looking at what God has given me, and I'm looking at what I've got, and I'm like, this is unbalanced, right? Instead of recognizing to just focus on what he wants. So when you do a project, you do the project for what you're doing the project for. Yes, there's always going to be the possibility of a project that went from YouTube that made it to Hulu, or that went from this and went there. But if you ask any of those creators that ever created those things, did you create it for the purposes of it getting on a larger platform? They will all tell you no. They'll all say no. Every last one of them, because that's not how you really create something from the heart. You do what you do, you put it out there, and you fucking move on. Which is why, listen, I didn't rest on my laurels with King Ester, and I knew it was good. I just kept it moving. I made Sauce. I knew Sauce was good. I'm making Last Name Unknown. I know that's good. When I finish making that, I'm making Inevitable Sadness. I know that's good. I'm working on it. I'm gonna just keep moving, and in between, I'm gonna be drinking a lot of champagne.
I love, like, you have your champagne. So we didn't talk about, you just mentioned Sauce. Can you talk a little bit about Sauce? Where is that in the process now? Is that completed? What's going on with Sauce?
Yeah, so it's finished. Sauce was, listen, of all the projects I've ever done, my most challenging project was Sauce. And the biggest challenge on that project was me. I'm going to be 100% honest about that. Because I had went through a tough time on King Ester set. And after that, I was just wanting to prove certain people that I am as dope as I am. And I can be this dope without you, right? And when you try to create anything from the perspective of proving anything to anyone, it's not going to have your heart. It's not going to have your heart, right? And so I love Sauce. I think Sauce is an incredible project, but Sauce didn't truly come from my heart. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What was Sauce about? Is that a web series?
Sauce is dope as shit. Okay. Sauce is about a Black chef in Brooklyn who gets brought down by this Me Too allegation, and he's got to fight his way back to his truth as a creator and as an executive chef, which he's so dope and he's so amazing. And so it's this really beautiful exploration of like Black masculinity from the standpoint of you start down broken, you know what I mean? And he has to build himself back up. And I know that journey as a Black man. I know we present well in the streets, but in reality, almost all of us are drinking Henny or smoking a blunt every single night, right? Because the shit is heavy. The heat on Black men, it's a lot of weight on our shoulders. Like clearly we can't even go jogging without having to look over my shoulder. And real shit, today I went for a walk and the cops like slowly going behind me. I know they don't want me, but you never really know. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't even know what your question was, but I know it was a really good question.
So I was just kind of asking.
I pray I answered it.
You was telling me the challenges of sauce, but and I wanted also the viewers, the people who joined us, to kind of know what that story was about. So you were sharing that story, just the challenges of that.
Yes, I did that with Brick TV. It was great. I did it with all Black women, and I love my Black women and my Black queens, and it was a great experience. But in the future, I'm gonna be working with the Black brothers. Like we need our moment.
The women were holding you to task. What was going on?
Hell, listen, Black women are the shit. They really are, and they think differently than Black men.
Yes, that's why you do.
And a whole lot of them doing that on set. Whew. Listen, at the end of the day, I see the spaces that have been created for Black women, and they are killing it. Queen and Slim, Queen Sugar.
Yes.
I worked on Issa Rae's YouTube. I worked on Insecure this season, episode 9 with Kerry Washington. Awesome. When women lead with other women, they kill that shit, right? But we also need a space for Black men to shine with other Black men. If you go on the basketball court and see how those Black men come together to get that ball in the hoop, there is no culture that can pull off what we can fucking pull off, right? And so when I start doing my next projects, I'm gonna make sure that my cast of characters are mostly young Black men, and we're gonna get out there, we're gonna kill that shit.
I love that. Okay, but you were in there with the women. That's all. That's what it's about.
Oh yeah, the whole time. Yeah. Being held accountable. I got cussed out a couple of times, but God is good. I made it out.
One of the things, we kind of talk all the great stuff, but I do want to get to financing, because I think when we have folks in here, a lot of content creators, and we have writers in here, but then when you get to the point of wanting to get that project filmed or whatever, how have you found the financing? Has it been self-financed? Have you been able to collaborate with people? What have you found, or any advice, like, of how to fund your project?
So financing is a thing that we all want, need, and are eventually going to have. In the beginning, you have to finance things yourself, because nobody's going to believe in your vision like you can. Right. Not only that, when you learn how to be savvy on $3,000, you can be savvy on 30, then you can be savvy on 300, and then you can be savvy on 3 million, right? Once you get above 3 million, you ain't got to be savvy. You can just pay motherfuckers to support you. You understand?
Right.
And so I wouldn't have got any of the support that I've gotten financially had I not already had displayed excellence that they felt like they could properly invest in.
Thank you.
And some investors I've been able to deliver on their returns, and some I have not. And let me tell you, for those that I haven't, it feels shitty. It feels shitty for somebody to give you $25,000, you put it in a project, and then the project doesn't go anywhere. That's the risk they take, but it makes you feel really, really shitty. And so I found the money from King Ester based on the relationships I had with an executive, Chris Hicks and Jenya Meggs, got me the deal over at BET. And I made enough money to also invest a little bit more into myself. So my first series, Brooklyn.Blue.Sky, I put about $7,500 into it, and then Chris and Jenny invested on the back end, and then I had $70,000 for King Ester. I think I had $70,000 for King Ester, and it eventually costed more because we had to raise a little bit more money. So yeah, it costs money.
Yeah, it costs money. We were talking in the beginning too about unholy war, and I think one of the things I've either heard in an interview, other interviews, where you talked about how in that was a play, correct? And how you had a screening, and how you kind of had 100 people, but you had 100 seats, and then you kind of looked out and you're like, it's not a lot of folks here. but you realize that the people who did support you and the people who were there, that's what was important, because you were on
Yeah.
stage showing your play. So if you can just, you know, we're rounding up, I think we got like 4 minutes, just kind of that, again, inspiration as we leave folks, that inspiration, even when you have great work, you've gotten there, and maybe you don't really in the beginning see those number of people in the seats or those numbers, you know, so how do you get past that and keep moving and celebrate what you have accomplished?
Well, one, what I do different now that I didn't do before was I didn't celebrate every success, right? So, like with the Emmys, I did in the past I wouldn't have celebrated unless I won, but I didn't give a fuck. When I submitted, I had a glass of champagne. When they said submissions were received, I had a glass of champagne. When they hit me back and said you made it past the first round, I had a glass of champagne. When they said you're shortlisted, I had another glass of champagne.
It's celebrating each step. I love it.
You
Yeah.
celebrate when you write it. You have a glass of champagne. When somebody says, "We'll take this," you have a glass of champagne. We have to celebrate ourselves all along the way, because if only you celebrate the big win and the big win never comes, you're gonna be disappointed. But if you celebrate yourself and what you did, because you did something remarkable, which was created, you have to celebrate that. And I celebrate all along the way.
Yes, and look, I'm going to go get my champagne right after this. I do, you know. So, and also, you've spent some of your time in Brooklyn. So, because of that, and I'm sure you've probably seen Spike Lee's tribute to New York. Spike Lee did a 3-minute film, and New York, New York, and Frank Sinatra, and the shots. Folks who haven't seen it, please go look it up. It's beautiful. It's showing what New York looks like now, but it's so heartwarming, right? With what's happening and showing the strength of New York. So because you did have some time in New York, I just kind of wanted to end it. If you could just tell us like your favorite restaurant when you was in Brooklyn, or your favorite restaurant when you come to New York, to say hi to us the next time, where are you going to go? So because you're also from Arkansas, if you can give me like your favorite place in New York and Arkansas that we have to try.
So let me get it before we get kicked off this bitch. First of all, in Arkansas, you got to go to Shotgun Dance or Sim's Barbecue. That is quintessential Arkansas. That is where the food is. And in Brooklyn, I have to say my favorite brunch spot was Woodland, because it was lit as fuck. The food wasn't that great, but we don't give a fuck if we're in there twerking. So
and what was it, Woodland?
Like, it was Woodlands. Woodlands
Okay.
right there on Flatbush. It was lit every Saturday over there. You couldn't even hardly get in. But maybe Sweet Chick, Nas's restaurant. I really love their food over there. You know, I'm trying to get you black places, right?
Yes, we love that.
Krabby Shack, black owned. So most of the black owned places, that's
we have to support. And so we have 2 minutes left. So I want to just say thank you for the people who joined. Thank you, Dui, for joining. And I just want to know, like, are you guys, I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to Jill Scott and Erykah Badu. Like, you know, like, I think this is great that we had a chance to chat with Dui, to hear about his film projects, for him to share his inspiration, for him to, you know, come in. So to me, this is like litting up. You already got your champagne. So what are you doing to prepare for Erykah Badu and Jill Scott?
I put on my white pants.
All right, all right. You got your white pants. You looking good. All right.
Hey.
I have my white on and going to go get my incense. And so I think what's happening, you know, us being quarantined has been amazing of what we see, you know, the talent that we're sharing on this platform. So I'm really excited to have you come and chat with me. And I'm looking forward for us to actually get together for brunch so I can also have a mimosa and champagne with you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank everybody for joining. And please go check out DuiJarrod.com. And he's also on Instagram and Facebook, and Murphy Muse. And Murphy Muse. Thanks, guys. If I didn't get through all the questions, go ahead definitely and check out Dui Jarrod on Instagram and Facebook, or send them over to me.